Okay, so we're going to cover how investors can maximize their ROI through strategic infill projects, and specifically how our new construction progress process works. So, I know both of you guys have, kind of know my background a little bit, but this is also for the recording. So, kind of a little bit about my background. So I transitioned from full-time flipping to new construction and development in 2019, 2020. I originally got my start back with house hacking back in 2013 with buying a duplex. I lived in one side, rented the other. I did that a second time in 2015 before getting into flipping full time in 2016 and then transitioning to development and new construction in 2019 and 2020. So kind of with that process, I learned how to spot undervalued properties, and kind of learned a lot about construction from renovations to new construction and found a niche area in infill development with underutilized urban lots with high upside. So we're a Boise-based builder specializing in custom homes, infill development, and small multifamily projects. We serve both first-time home builders and experienced investors throughout the Treasure Valley. We're known for our transparency, expert guidance, high-quality craftsmanship, and a designer touch, and also leveraging our experience with rental properties with getting the maximum ROI out of them. So we manage every step of the process from lot selection to final inspection. And we're experts in infill development. So we're experts at building within city limits, maximizing land use and property value, and which is ideal for increasing housing supply in the Treasure Valley's growing core. We also have an ability to navigate our the city zoning and site constraints with efficient, creative solutions. So why you guys are here? So as an investor, you're looking to maximize your returns, minimize surprises, and build long-term value. So this workshop is going to give you the framework, numbers, and strategies to confidently invest in new construction projects in Boise's market, the Treasure Valley market. So what we're going to do is we're going to cover, we'll give you the tools to vet buildable lots for investment potential, understand how what real construction costs are, the timelines and the risks, how to partner with us, and how to scale your portfolio. So part one is understanding new construction costs. Part two is the build process, what to expect and how to de-risk it. Part three is smart lot selection and deal vetting. Part four is how to partner or how we build for ROI. Then we'll go over some case studies and success stories, and then how to partner with us and questions and answers. So part one, understanding new construction costs. So a lot of different builders use different pricing strategies. So we focus on three different I guess categories or levels of build. And these are kind of tailored for specific strategies. So the first one is builder basic. So this is basically just your run-of-the-mill builder grade. So it's very budget friendly. It's ideal for long-term rentals or even first-time investors. Then we have our Premium Plus. So this is really where we do a lot of our builds. So we do this for our own resale projects, or even partnering with people for resales. It's great for semi-custom, and it's also great for upper level mid-tier homes. So it's a step above the builder basic, but it has higher end finishes and more design elements to it. They're also great for short-term rentals where you can keep the cost in check, but also have an elevated experience over your standard construction grade or builder grade. Then we also have our Platinum Plus. This is more for the high-end, fully custom homes. And so this is more really for people that are not so concerned on price, and they're more concerned with just really having like that ultimate luxury. So understanding the full investment picture. So build cost per square foot don't typically include site infrastructure. So sidewalks, utility hookups, and road access, for example, are some additional costs that we can run into with each project. So that's just something to keep in mind. And when we have our deal list, we actually vet all this. Any kind of customization upgrades and design choices. So if you choose a like a builder's basic package, that's going to be like pretty bare minimum design. So if you start making design selections, or even on the mid level, if you start picking out higher end tile, that kind of thing, it can add to the costs. And then the other thing to consider with as an investor is your construction loan interest, which is, when you take out a construction loan, you start paying interest immediately. If you have a drawn budget, and then as you take draws, your monthly payment goes up. So this is billed by the lender and it's paid by the client throughout the construction period. Then that total cost depends on the loan structure and build timeline. The other thing to keep in mind, what we do for our deposit schedule is we do 4% at contract signing, and that's based on kind of the estimated build cost. Even though at that point we don't have a set build cost, we have an estimate. So we take that median estimate and charge 4%. And then we do a 6% once we apply for the permits. That covers costs of applying for the permits and paying for all those fees. And then once we start, or once you close on the loan funding, typically your lender is going to release 25% total. So that's when we ask for that next 15%. That allows us to pay any subcontractors that we need to upfront. Also, any materials that we have to buy right at the start. Then from there, after that, it's just on a draw schedule. So we draw typically once a month, and it's percentage of completion. Some additional costs to plan for. So one tip is to plan a realistic budget and avoid surprise costs by walking through these options with us early. And we'll give you a full breakdown. So after this, you'll have an opportunity to download the new construction guide, and that'll have a full breakdown of what each build package includes. Okay, so for contracts, what you guys should know. So we really try to be clear, transparent, and protective. So we use a straightforward contract that sets clear expectations from the start. That'll cover construction timelines and key milestones, payment schedule and draw structure, materials, finishes, and customization scope, change order process and approval flow, performance standards, warranties and service terms, and then ongoing communication plan with the builder or between the builder and the client. So the new construction process, how that works. So we have a 9-step process or 9 phases, I should say. Number one, and the most important we think, is the pre-construction design and planning. So we have, I think, 6 different meetings, and 5 of them are all centered around the pre-construction design and planning. So really, we approach kind of everything, not just building, but everything with, we really want to spend probably 80% of our time planning properly, and then everything else goes smoothly after that. So then the next step, after we have a good plan in place, then we go through permitting. Then the next step is actual construction. So we'll do the site prep and foundation work. Step 4 is going to be the framing and structural work. And this is where we do our third-party inspection, number 1. Sometimes we'll actually combine inspections 1 and 2, because you can still, after we have phase 5 is rough ends, plumbing, electrical, and HVAC. You can still see all the framing and structural work. So sometimes we'll actually do this as just one inspection. And so that's one thing that kind of makes us unique, is that we offer third-party inspections on every build, and our clients can see those inspections all along the way, and they'll see what came up in those inspections and how we fixed them. And then we'll have phase 6 is drywall and insulation. We'll inspect there as well. And then our interior and exterior finishes, that's inspection number 3 or 4. And then we'll have our final walkthrough and quality check, which is the final inspection. And then our occupancy and move in, and where you get the keys, is phase 9. So choosing the right lot. So the foundation of every successful build is the right lot. or the right idea on the right lot. So location, location, and zoning. So looking beyond the address, so verify the zoning, the setbacks, height limits, parking minimums, and the neighborhood comps for both resale and rentals. Again, this is something that we help vet as part of our deal list, which you guys are kind of both familiar with. Then we have the lot size and shape. So, with infills, especially, sometimes you get some awkward footprints or awkward lot sizes. Um, so that can add thousands in design and foundation costs. But we basically design a project that works the best for each lot. And then we have the utilities and infrastructure. So we like to confirm the access to all the utilities. So that's gas, water, power, sewer. And then we also need fire flow from the water company. So we say before you write their offer, you actually don't necessarily need that before you write the offer, but as part of the due diligence time frame, you really want to we really want to get all this information. And then we have the future resale and rentability. So looking at the school districts, walkability, planned city projects, all that influences the exit value. So we kind of analyze this as part of the whole deal. And then just lean on us. So we help you vet the lots early so you can avoid these costly surprises and delays. So due diligence checklist. How to de-risk your deal. So utility locates. So looking at the depth, capacity, and tap fee estimates. Public improvement. So a lot of times the city or the county highway district is going to make you put in sidewalks, pave alleys, widen roads. If you have to do curb and gutter, curb cuts, that kind of thing. And so we want to find all this out or have a reasonable idea what's going to be required before you close on this, close on a deal. And then the building envelope. So the setbacks, height limits, facade, and fire rating requirements, parking and access. So on-site parking requirements and street or alley requirements. And then also getting in front of the city. So, skipping the red tape, we schedule and attend pre-app and planning reviews. So we'll actually attend those with you, or we can just attend them. But we want to be a part of that from the very beginning. And ideally, we get in at least one meeting with the city before you close on a property. And then we'll go over the financial feasibility. So the highest and best use study and pro forma. So you can see your projected ROIs before closing. And then we'll also cover or we'll review any kind of incentives or grants. So green energy or affordability incentives right now are popular with Boise. A lot of times that doesn't necessarily make sense on a project, but we'll, kind of review them and see if that's something you want to approach. Or even any density bonuses. So on some projects, you can actually get some density bonuses for meeting certain incentives with the city as well. So our deal pipeline is your inside track to build ready lots, or not necessarily even build ready lots, but potential infill deals. So our deal list, so we have a curated inventory of infill lots and small multifamily sites across the Treasure Valley. You can also get early access email alerts before listings hit the MLS. So if we have off-market deals that we know of, so a lot of times, because people kind of know that I do a lot of infill stuff, a lot of times I'm aware of off-market deals like weeks before they hit the MLS. So that's sometimes an email going forward that I'll send out. It's not super often, but I'd say about once every month or two, I come across these. We also do detailed vetting, so zoning summaries, project plan, and pro forma snapshots. One thing we're also going to do weekly from now on is we're going to send out an infill deal of the week. And so basically that detailed vetting will be in a summary on a one-page infill deal of the week email that we're going to start sending out. If you already have your own lot, so we'll build on it. We'll run the same due diligence package on any parcel that you bring to us. The biggest thing is to loop us in early, so together we can write offers that win and pencil. If you, of course, we'll help you if you have a deal that you bought, 2 or 3 years ago. we're actually working with a couple people right now that bought something several years ago and, kind of went with one plan and now they're wanting to switch it up. And ultimately, if they would have known about us or approached us from the very beginning, we basically could have, completed the highest and best use and been in and out of that deal already. So ideally, you bring us in when you first start looking at deals. Okay, so with ADUs specifically, this is how we price our ADU builds. Um, so this is designed to be transparent, scalable, and investor friendly. So we use a cost plus 15% model. So you pay the actual construction costs. So that's the labor, materials, subs. Then we also kind of divide out what our administrative software and management fees are associated with that project. And then we'll charge a 15% fee on top of that. That just covers our business overhead and builder profit. So you received itemized budgets and invoices for full transparency. So it's ideal if you're trying to like really keep your budget tight, or if you're designing your own project. So if you're not using our designers, if you're kind of picking out the fixtures and finishes, it kind of gives you a little bit more control over the cost. And then it's also great for value add designs. Okay, so how our meetings go. So we have our 6 different meetings that we cover with all of our investors when we start building or before we start building. So the first one is just the introductory meeting. So this is within 2 weeks of first contact with you on a specific project. And so what we're going to do is we're going to cover your client goals, what the timeline and budget is. We'll also discuss the desired home size, the location, and lot preferences. We'll determine your financing plan, so whether you're paying with cash, using a construction loan, or using builder financing. We'll also discuss if the lot isn't secured, initiating a search with a realtor. So we partner with licensed realtors that go through our training. And so that gives them kind of extra insight into our strategies. So, if you don't already work with a realtor, we'll set you up with those. If you already have a realtor that's not on our list, they have to go through our training. But then we'll basically initiate the search with the realtor. So if the lot is owned, so if you're bringing a lot into the deal already, um, we'll assess the property layout and build conditions. Okay, and that meeting is typically 30 to 60 minutes. This is typically going to be a Zoom call. Sometimes it'll be, in person at an office if you prefer, but I guess either way, well, it's probably 50-50. Sometimes we do in person, sometimes Zoom, just whatever's most convenient. I do really like meeting people face to face, especially in the first meeting if we haven't met before. So the second meeting is the site and building design meeting. So this is going to be on site on the lot. So this is scheduled within 3 business days of the lot being under contract. Ideally, it's right away, even as you're making an offer. And so we're going to evaluate the site conditions, the topography, access, zoning, setbacks. We're going to determine or help you determine the highest and best use. We'll review floor plan options and exterior elevations. A lot of times this is just a really high level discussion, not necessarily looking specifically at floor plans. And then we'll identify what your must-haves and budget priorities are. So the third meeting, and again, this is a planning meeting, so we're going to do our initial contract signing and deposit. So this is 60 to 90 minutes in person. This is within 3 weeks of the site design meeting. And so we'll cover we'll review preliminary site and floor plan. So between meetings 2 and 3, we'll actually go and put together some rough sketches of some site and floor plans based on what your goals are. So we'll discuss them from there in this in-person meeting on the third meeting. We'll discuss how you can customize it, any kind of layout changes, or upgrade desires. And at this point is when we'll have kind of a range of a budget range that we think it'll fall in based on your goals. And so then we'll sign an initial contract based on that budget range, and then we'll collect 4% non-refundable deposit based on the midpoint estimate. So if your build cost estimate, let's say we think it's between 500 and 550,000, will collect a 4% based on the 525,000. All right, and then the fourth meeting is the drafted plan review and initial interior design meeting. So this is 90 to 120 minutes in person. Sometimes this is actually two separate meetings, and the reason why this is because if we're using our interior designers, sometimes you'll actually meet with them separately in person. Um, then we want this to be within 3 weeks of contract signing. So between that, the previous meeting and this meeting, we'll take our initial sketches and and any kind of red lines or notes that we have about those initial floor plans. We'll then send that to our drafter, and the drafter will come up with the drafted plans for that building. A lot of times it's just going to be the floor plan at this point, um, and the site plan, I should say, site plan and floor plan and elevations. And so we'll review that, and then we can make any red lines during this meeting. So we'll review all this stuff in detail and make any corrections. So typically we want to go into this with the expectation that we're only going to change the plans once. So we want to make really detailed notes on any kind of changes that need to be made. And then either as a second part of this or a completely separate meeting, you'll talk with the interior designer. And so you'll discuss what finishes, fixtures. If you have any inspiration photos, you'll bring those to the meeting or send it to the designer beforehand. And then we'll also identify any budget sensitive selections and possible upgrades. The fifth meeting is going to be the final interior and exterior design review. So that's going to be 90 to 120 minutes. This can be in person or Zoom. And this is going to be within 2 weeks of the plan review meeting. So in this meeting, we're going to finalize all the finishes, fixtures, paint colors, flooring, all those things. So our goal here is to basically, there's usually, 100 or so decisions that you make on every build. Our goal here is to have 99% of those decisions made before we even have permits. And the reason why this is because the more decisions you have made before you break ground, the smoother and quicker that build process goes. This is where we're gonna lock in the approved budget and allowances. And so we might not have specific fixtures picked out, but we'll have a budget based on what your design, what you want in the design. And so we look at our historical prices, and we'll have an allowance set aside. That's will typically cover like kind of what your design choices are. This is where we'll have a more locked in construction estimate. So this is where you'll sign the final construction contract, and then we will also right after this submit for the permit application and collect a 6% deposit there. That 6% is basically going to pay for the permitting and all the fees that are associated with that. All right, and then the sixth meeting, this is the final one. So notice the first five, those were all before we even applied for permits. And then we skip all the way to the sixth meeting, where we have our final walkthrough and key exchange. So this is the only official meeting that we have after all the planning. Now that's not to say that we won't have communication and in-person walkthroughs. We will actually set aside times where you can kind of come through and walk through your project. We don't want you walking through the project while we have contractors there, but we'll have specific times, specifically during the inspection periods or right after the inspections, where we'll walk through and kind of show you anything going on and give you opportunity to walk through at the different stages. But official meetings is the sixth and final one is the final walkthrough and the key exchange. So this is typically about an hour. It's once the project is complete and we either already have the occupancy or are very close to getting it. We've already completed a final inspection. So we'll walk through the completed home. We'll verify the final punch list has been resolved. And we'll provide the final third-party inspection report, cover the warranties, go over kind of how all the systems in the house works, that kind of thing. Then you'll get your keys and all your documentation. So understanding how builders charge. So this is one thing that's very confusing for a lot of people. And the reason why is because builders charge differently. So you can talk to, 5 different builders and they're all going to charge differently. Now there are 3 main ways that builders charge. Um, so the first one is the cost plus model. So how this works is the client pays the actual cost of labor and materials plus a builder fee, typically a percentage. Sometimes it's a dollar amount, but that's based on the cost plus model. So there's two versions of this. One is the cost plus all in, which is going to be the builder will basically charge specifically for materials, labor, and then the builder's administrative and overhead costs associated with that project. And then they add a fee on top of that. So that's what we do with our ADU build. We do the cost plus 15%. Some builders might do, this can range anywhere from 10 to 20% typically. But the percentage isn't always the most important part. The final dollar amount is the most important part. Because the other thing that can be different in here too is you usually have a contingency budget, and a builder might charge 15%, they might charge 20%, they might charge 12%, but then you also have a contingency budget in there, and that might be 5%. That's typically the minimum. Some builders might have a 10 or 15% contingency. So ultimately, you just want to pay attention to the final price, and how detailed that final price is. The second version is the cost plus bear. So that's basically just you're paying only the labor and materials, and then the percentage on top of that is going to also include then the administrative and overhead charges for the builder is going to basically be rolled into the percentage or the markup percentage. So this is typically how we charge the rest of our builds. We typically do cost plus 30%, and that basically allows us to cover our basically all of our overhead. So we don't charge you like admin and administrative or project management software fees separately. We'll just do the materials and labor and 30% on top of that. So that's typically why that percentage is larger. And then, but typically, either way you build this out or we build this out, it ends up being about the same either way. It's just it's typically easier, especially if we're doing more volume, on doing the cost plus bear. So the pros of this model is there's full transparency. It's often more flexible for custom builds or builds where you have some customization to them. The cons, it's harder to lock in a final price early. So that's why we have all the meetings that we have. So if you just have one meeting with a builder and they say, okay, we're just going to charge you this plus 30%, but then you don't actually have any design choices made, this budget can go out of whack really easily if the proper planning isn't in place. This is also going to require trust and clear reporting. So where some builders will kind of get out of whack with this, especially is if you don't have all those plans, it's really easy to get nickel and dimed along the way. So you might think you're paying, let's say 200 a square foot, but then you haven't made all those decisions on the design, and all of a sudden you start making decisions and your build cost goes up by 50,000 or 100,000 because you haven't made all those decisions. So the second way builders charge is with a fixed price contract. So this isn't actually super common in the residential build space. It's more common in the commercial build space. But how this works is the builder gives one flat rate that covers the full project scope. The pros of this is it's predictable budgeting. It's good for first time I wouldn't even say first time buyers. It's good for people with a larger budget. Um, is I would say that's actually kind of the opposite of what this is. This is more like people that want a specific budget, but aren't necessarily trying to be cost effective. So it's less flexibility, and we're typically going to charge more contingency to cover unknowns. And it's most of the time it's way more expensive because clients want to make a lot of decisions or a lot of upgrades, and typically you have to factor that in as a builder and charge a higher percentage. Then you have the fixed price plus change orders. So how this has worked is it's the cost base cost is fixed, but then the client can make design upgrades with written change orders. This kind of balances structure and flexibility, so it's great for semi-custom builds or even full custom builds. The downside of this is it can cause budget and timeline creep if many changes are made after construction starts. So again, when it comes down to the pricing, the most important part of pricing is having your decisions made before you ever break ground. And if out of 100 decisions, if you have 99 of those made before you ever break ground and just need to make a couple of decisions along the way, maybe you change your mind on something, um, you can kind of lock in your price a lot easier. All right, so custom designs that maximize yield. So we tailor each of our builds to the lot size and constraints. So that's where we have a lot of strength here, is because we focus on infill development. So typically with infill, each lot is very unique typically. A lot of times you'll have some commonalities, like in Boise, for example, a lot of the older areas of town, the substandard lots of record are 25 feet wide, and then they'll typically be anywhere from 125 feet to 175 feet deep. And so we can kind of reuse a lot of designs or footprints that way. But then, you have other lots that are completely different. Um, but anyway, so we tailor each of those builds for the lot. And then we also consider the intended exit. So whether you want to keep it as a long-term rental, as a short-term rental, or to resell it. So we design it to match those your exit goals. We also look at the neighborhood comps and price ceilings. So you don't want to overbuild for a neighborhood. You also don't want to underbuild for a neighborhood. And so if you just use a cookie cutter, download plans off of the internet that aren't really designed for a specific lot or specific neighborhood, you can actually end up paying tens of thousands of dollars more, or it ends up costing you tens of thousands of dollars because you're not intentional about your design and your exit. So we're not a cookie cutter builder. We're purpose driven to meet or sorry, so we have a purpose driven design with ROI as the North Star. All right, so how we build for ROI. That's return on investment. So we design the strategy by your investment goal. So if your goal is long-term rentals, we have focused square footage and high efficiency layout. So basically what we typically want to do on long-term rentals, we want to have the lowest square footage possible and still meet your goals with that property. So for example, if you want a 3-bedroom, 2-bath property as a long-term rental, that's going to typically, maximize your rent possibility. But we're going to try to have the most efficient layout possible, so we can keep your build costs lower. So for example, if we're going to build a 3-2 and we can get an efficient design in 1,400 square feet versus 1,550 square feet, we might end up saving you 30 grand on that build because we were able to make it efficient by 150 square feet. We're also going to use durable finishes. So LVP, quartz counters, soft close doors and drawers, that's pretty common, even on our builder grade. So quartz, we don't always do that on builder grade. It's kind of up to you, but that's maybe a small upgrade that you want to pay that'll give you a little bit more ROI, and not only more ROI, but more durability for long term. And then basically all the cabinet suppliers that we use, whether it's uh, RTA, so ready to assemble cabinets, is typically what we'll do on the long-term rentals. They're still going to have soft closed doors and drawers, and they'll be durable. So good construction quality where you don't have to worry about renters, trashing your cabinets. We'll also use lower maintenance landscaping. Long-term rentals, long-term renters aren't typically going to care about as much about your grass as you are if you're going to live there, owner occupied. So we try to make it sure that it's the lowest maintenance possible. And then for short-term rentals, we're going to have the elevated design details. So we might incorporate in accent walls. We might have some floating shelves in the kitchen. We might have some, maybe like a larger walk-in shower in the primary suite, with a soaker tub. So we really want to elevate that experience. Short-term rentals is all like anymore is all about the experience. And so that's how you maximize your ROI on those. You want to basically have the maximum rental dollars and the maximum um, or the best possible vacancy rate. Um, and then having Instagrammable finishes. So again, that's all about, when people look at pictures, do they want to rent that short term? We'll also focus on outdoor entertainment upgrades. So maybe we do a pergola, maybe we do hot tubs, maybe we do, special lighting outside. We'll also do some workspace and smart tech integration. So in short-term rentals, especially, we try to, even probably in most bedrooms, limit the closet space and put in a workspace instead. Then our strategy for if you just want to build it and sell it. So we're going to do on-trend selections. So make sure the design is on trend. We'll keep a broad buyer appeal. So even though it's on trend, we're still going to appeal to the mass market. We'll have premium curb appeal. So make sure that it's really designed to sell versus designed to rent. So part 5, what makes Matson homes different? So we're built for investors and designed with purpose. So we maximize every square foot. So we don't just build homes, we maximize potential. So we try to get the most units per lot possible. We optimize the rentable space and we lower the build cost per unit by optimizing that rentable space. So every design is crafted to deliver the best product for the lot, not just what fits, but what performs. So we are investors, so we think like investors, and we relay that to our investor clients. So whether it's a forever home or high yield rental, we approach every project with an investor's mindset. So we're going to maximize the income potential, minimize the construction and long-term maintenance costs, and we tailor the layouts to function, resale, and rentability. So we tailor to the lot, neighborhood, and goal. So every infill lot is unique. So we custom design floor plans based on lot shape, street character, and city code. So street character, for example, you might drive down one street on the Boise bench, for example, and it has a lot of older style ranch style homes. And so we're really going to design the property to kind of fit that character. Now we're still going to have a more modern design, but we're going to really want to fit the character of that street or neighborhood. What we don't want to do is go in and put an ultra modern house in on a block that has, like the older ranch style homes. It's usually going to stick out like a sore thumb, and it's going to be harder to sell or harder to rent a lot of times. So we really tailor it to that street and neighborhood. That's not to say you can't design something more modern. We do that, but we try to do like a ranch style, but a modern ranch style. We also have goal-driven strategies. So we build differently for like kind of like we discussed for long-term rentals, mid or short-term rentals, or build to sell projects, and also custom homeowners. So we try to scrutinize every square foot of the layout for the most functionality, cost efficiency, and future flexibility. So some of our example strategies for long-term rentals. So we focus more on budget and less on design. So we'll build with the durable materials. So LVP flooring, soft close cabinets that are RTA typically. We'll usually use the one piece tub and shower combos. And then quartz counters is a little bit of an upgraded cost, but it's worth it for the durability that you get long term. And then we try to have the smallest square footage that's still functional. We'll use landscaping that requires less maintenance. So typically, what we like to do too is doing um, like turf. The turf options nowadays, they've come a long ways. They make turf that actually looks very. You can style it off of different grass models even. And so if that's an option in the neighborhood, and it's a small enough yard that it makes sense, a lot of times we like to do that because it's basically zero maintenance. Or what we might do is just do more xeriscaping and installing sod and just minimal grass where it can die or whatever. Then building for short-term rentals. So we have added design elements. So we'll do accent walls, custom finishes, unique touches, desk spaces in bedrooms, and smaller open closets. We'll use more energy efficient fixtures and systems because you're typically the one paying for the utility costs. We want to make sure that your long-term utility costs are as low as possible. And then, like we talked about, doing upgrade outdoor elements like patios, hot tubs, pergolas. So quality you can see and prove. So we do third-party inspections at every phase. So framing and structural, rough-ins, drywall and insulation, finishes and fixtures, and then the final inspection. We provide you the full report at close, and even actually along the way, we provide you those inspection reports. So you'll see the inspection findings, how each issue is resolved by the time you get to the next report. And then that just gives you the proof of the quality from the foundation to the final touches, gives you peace of mind. So a little bit of review on infill development and maximizing land use. So infill is just building in established neighborhoods to increase land value and density. Why it's important now, it's the demand is high for housing in Boise, especially new construction. We're actually one of the few markets where we're actually selling more new construction than existing because we just have we still have a lot of people moving here and there's still a high demand for more housing. Space is limited, so it makes infill a profitable solution. So our advantage is we have mastery of zoning and site constraints and city incentives, and then we design it obviously for investors as well. We also have, investor-friendly projects like ADUs, duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes. In the city of Boise with the new zoning, almost any lot now you can build at least a duplex. A lot of times a duplex plus an ADU. So typically on any regular lot, you can build at least 3 doors now, as long as you can fit 2 parking spaces. So our custom and semi-custom home buildings, we have options for every client. So we have the builder basics, so that's great for budget builds and rentals. The premium plus, that's more for short-term rentals or high ROI resale homes. And then our platinum plus is typically for custom luxury builds. This can also be for resale. If you have a desire to get into or do like a high-end custom luxury build and resale, a lot of times the margins there are a lot bigger. There's a little bit more risk associated with that too, but then that would fall into the platinum plus build. So we offer total transparency and high quality. All right, where we build. So we'll build pretty much anywhere in the Treasure Valley and Ada and Canyon County. We'll also do Emmett, Mountain Home, Payette, and Fruitland. We haven't done and probably won't do anytime soon, like Garden Valley, or going up to Sun Valley or McCall in the near future. All right, part 7. So case studies and success stories. So to just give you an example of a few builds we've recently completed. So we have 4309 Life Tree. This was a custom build. So the main house was 3,039 square feet. It was 4 bedrooms and 3.5 bathrooms. And then there was an 823 square foot garage with an ADU above it. That's 2 bedrooms and 1 bath. So overall, this house was about 3860 square feet living square footage. Um, and it was 6 bedrooms and 4.5 bathrooms. Then they had the 2 car garage. Part of this 823 square feet, they actually also had a theater room in there. So the total living square feet, 4,169. So some of the unique features with this one is we had a pass-through fireplace to the patio, which you can kind of see in that bottom picture there. We actually designed or I guess we had a third-party contractor that had designed a snow melt system for the patios and driveways. That also incorporated a passive solar system on the roof, and then it had part of the heating system was radiant heated floors inside on the first level, and then energy efficient upgrades throughout. So the total client build cost on this was 910,000. This is some of the finishes, how this turned out. There's also in the kitchen a pass-through window to the side patio as well for entertaining. So this one was right next door. This is a spec build that we did. So this one we had a living area square footage of 2138, garage square footage of 550, 3 bedrooms, 2.5 bathrooms. Some of the unique features on this one is we had custom cabinets and tile, huge primary ensuite with a soaker tub, walk-in shower with 4 shower heads. We also did a raised slab on grade foundation. That's because this is in Garden City, in the floodplain. So we actually raised the foundation by 3 feet to get it out of the floodplain so that the future homeowner didn't have to pay flood insurance. This also had a large walk-in pantry, high efficiency water heater and furnace. And this one sold for 627,500. And this strategy was design focused for the resale and fast turnover. These are some of the finishes: the kitchen, master bathroom, and bedroom. This is one that we have upcoming for ourselves. We're actually this is going to be a duplex with an ADU. We're actually reanalyzing this. We might actually turn it into 2 townhomes instead of the duplex and ADU. But we're going to convert the existing house to a 2 bedroom, 2 bath ADU. So this one was kind of unique where the house was built in 1935 and it already sat at the back of the lot. And so it allows us to maximize the use by building something up front. We're designing this for short-term rentals. And so what this looks like is a purchase price. We bought it for 301,000. Total construction budget was 615,000. That includes the remodel of the existing house plus building the duplex. And so we're all in for about $1 million, including interest. The estimated finished value, I think it's actually going to be closer to 1.15 or 1.2 million, but conservatively 1.1 million. And the strategy is high yield short-term rental. This is kind of an example of just some of the renderings that we've done so far, and the floor plans. All right, so part 8, how to partner with us. So step 1 is get added to our deal list. So attend all 3 sessions. So that's intro to infill development, new construction unlocked, which is what this meeting is. And then our third one, which is coming up this Friday, is our deal list explained. We'll also have these recorded so you can rewatch, and we'll likely do this for new investors about once a month as well. We'll have all 3 of these sessions. And then number 2 is get set up with one of our trained realtor partners. So I know a couple of you guys that are on this have already talked with realtors and working with our realtors already. For anybody watching the recording, if you already have a realtor that you have a representative agreement signed with them, they can be invited to the deal list as well. They just need to go through the training with us just so that they are aware of the process, and it'll help it go a lot smoother. If you don't have a realtor that you work with, we can set you up. We have I think it's getting close to a dozen different realtors that we work with now that are all trained on this. And then number 3 is sign an engagement agreement with Matson Homes. And basically all that's saying is just if you're going to use this, use our system and strategies, that you're just going to work with us on these deals. So it's kind of like the same thing as, signing a representative agreement with your realtor. Just saying that you're not going to go cheat on your realtor and find a different realtor to buy a property and then ditch them. So step two is identify your wants, needs, and goals. So identify an investment strategy that aligns with your long-term goals. Step three, this isn't mandatory, but it's very helpful, is joining our weekly and monthly Zoom meetings. So this is something that we just started scheduling. Our first weekly one is actually going to be this week, Friday at 2 p.m. So every Friday at 2 p.m., we're going to have our weekly Zoom meetings that cover all the infill deals. So any new infill deals from Friday at 2 p.m., or I'd say Friday at 9 a.m. the previous week to all the way through the weekend to the Friday at 9 a.m. We're going to cover any deals that we identified during that came new on the market, or even if we were made aware of anything off market, we're going to cover that on Fridays. And then once a month, we'll probably start this maybe July, maybe August. But we'll have a monthly Zoom meeting that's going to cover the progress and challenges we've had on every project that we currently have in the works. So this is going to be open to everybody. You don't have to be part of the deal list. That's going to cover. So we'll basically invite people that have already invested in our deals, or that may be interested in investing in our deals or their own deals. Anybody that's already got projects in the works. So once a month, we'll basically go through the progress that was made on those deals, or any kind of challenges that we ran into. And that's going to be our way of basically kind of keeping everybody up to date regularly on our projects, because otherwise it's just hard to individually communicate with people on a consistent basis that's regular, that they expect, if we don't have it scheduled like this. Step four is just closing more deals and making more money. So leveraging our expertise to build your portfolio. Build to sell, or build and use to rent for cash flow on new construction rentals. So our goal is ultimately to help you buy and build at least one of these every 2 years. Ideally more often than that, maybe every year. If your strategy is to build up your cash to be able to do more, maybe your strategy is going to be to do one of these every year to 2 years and sell it and gain gain or build up that equity or that cash stockpile. And then maybe after that, you keep some of these and keep them as rentals, and then kind of build up a little bit slower. But then you still have a ton of equity that you're keeping in those deals as well. All right, questions and answers. So does anybody have any questions?